What is up, and welcome back. I'm still here. She's still here. You're still not allowed to leave. But today, I've improved for hopefully a number of reasons. Number one, I have a script. It's also why the lighting might be slightly different. My computer is on behind where my phone sits now. Improvement, I know, it's shocking. I evolve at a rapid pace. And also, I made a thumbnail. Mostly because I uploaded the second one and then I went, I am making the same face in both of those. And it was just like the auto-generated ones that it gave me. But still, I can't handle that. So I made one. Except for I don't know how to make a thumbnail, so I just did it in Procreate. So if it looks like shit, it's because I did it in Procreate and I can't draw, let alone make a thumbnail. Regardless, moving on. Today's topic, still not Kindle Unlimited because I am ill prepared for that. We're talking about, I did not look up the pronunciation. I made my whole little script here. Not a pronunciation, but there's this app called Kalshi that's been non-stop advertising to me for what I swear has been like over a month now, if not longer. And it annoyed me. So therefore we're here. And then I think tomorrow I will discuss internet fandoms and their penchant for shipping actual people together, specifically in queer ways. I think it happens less with straight people because all of the examples that I could think of off the top of my head were queer. So like the Heated Rivalry actors, what's his name? Hudson Williams and Connor Story. For like a recent example. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about the gambling app. But it's not a gambling app. It's legally, it's not a gambling app. Technically, I think it is one. Don't install anything. Anyway. So it is a prediction market app, which is basically a gambling app, but the way it operates is slightly different, and I will discuss that. I'm not talking about the logistics of online gambling. I don't know anything about that, and that would have taken a lot more time to look into. But if you want a video on that, Drew Gooden did a really good one, so I would look into that. I think it's just called like online gambling apps, something like that. He talked a lot about like sports betting and like the logistics of all of it and like the effect it has on people and the way that those apps work. And all of that is really great, and none of that is what I am saying. I'm talking about this one specific app because it won't leave me alone, and therefore I am going to talk about it. Good lord, the one time. I also won't be using the app because I don't have money to spend on a gambling app. Also, history of addiction in my family. I won't be risking that. Regardless of whether or not they claim not to be a gambling app, if you have issues with gambling yourself, or you know you have issues with addiction running in your family, I wouldn't use it. I just don't think it would work out well for you. Do as you will, but I wouldn't suggest it. Anyway. So in our product description for this app, it purposely avoids referring to it as a betting app. And in all of its like website, it doesn't call it a betting app. It refers to it as this prediction market app, because then they don't have to be regulated by gambling rules, which is really what they're avoiding here, which is sketchy as hell, one would say. Yeah. Instead of like typical gambling, technically, it refers to it as buying and selling contracts that are based on whether or not an event does or doesn't happen. So it does have sports betting, which I think is how it's primarily marketed, but I've seen it, like, there's this one ad, I think it's on TikTok a lot, where it's like, what do you think the Rotten Tomato score for Project Hail Mary is gonna be? Did you know you can bet on that? Which is a choice. Also, that one feels really Googleable, but you know, anyway. So, users on this app have made quite a bit of money. I have two examples here that I found, I believe, on NPR. One user made $23,000 predicting that the Kiss Cam CEO, who I don't remember what he was the CEO of, the one at that Coldplay concert, a user claimed that they thought he would resign, and it was correct, and they made $23,000, and another one made $50,000 for correctly predicting the Pope. They were betting on the Pope, which I haven't been Catholic in a minute, but I feel as though that's not very Catholic. So the way that they describe it in terms of how it works for these people who have made this amount of money is like stocks. So if I'm trying to think of an example, like let's say there's a new building going up somewhere, and and one side is like, it will take longer than 6 months, and the other side is it will take shorter than 6 months. The side taking shorter than 6 months would most likely be our lesser in this situation, and therefore those contracts would be cheaper to buy than the ones saying longer than 6 months, because it's the less likely option and more people are buying for the longer than 6 months option. And then the money that they basically, if what they say they think is going to happen doesn't, it becomes void, and therefore their money just goes into the app, presumably to pay out the other people, the people who voted yes. But also this app has to be making money. They do an insane amount of marketing, so I have to assume they're in the middle there taking extra money, which I don't think is bad. I don't know how they would be like, I don't know how apps make money, but I'm assuming that's somewhat okay. So there's obviously a whole host of issues that I'm going to get into about whether or not it is a gambling app and the impacts that it has if it is one, and also the things that they're doing to avoid being called one. But they do betting on weird things. Like, they do bettings on, like, movie ratings and political events. They also did one on the Los Angeles wildfires, which is bad. I don't know why they did that. I don't know exactly what it was that people were betting on, but I know that they did it on it. They do typically avoid things like deaths, wars, and terrorism because they don't want to encourage people to actually do it. But they do allow people to bet on natural disasters. So, like, it's not technically wrong, I suppose, because people can't do anything to make a hurricane worse, but it feels, a lot of people were morally objected to it because these are situations where people are, like, losing their homes and damage is being done to whole communities, and this app is promoting people betting on the outcome, which isn't illegal, it's just immoral. It's just kind of like, she doesn't want to listen to me talk anymore. I see how it is. Anyway, it's not illegal, it's just gross. Like, I'm not yip hip hooraying for this. The way that this app functions also promoted a whole bunch of other companies to begin making apps that do the same thing. So we are now flooding this market of prediction, so that way they can make their money, and technically it's not gambling. So other companies such as Robinhood, Coinbase, and FanDuel have all announced their, like, rival services. I believe FanDuel is acknowledging being a sports gambling app. Fuck, my computer shut off. But I don't know that for sure. I can't remember what it said, and I didn't write it down. But I do think that they are owning up to it. Which isn't, it's still not good. I don't think online gambling is, like, a great choice, just because I think it makes it really accessible for people, and it really shouldn't be really accessible for people for the most part. Like, my younger brother, here last year, we went to I think it was a Jersey Mike's near my house, and my parents bought us, like, they have, like, a little arcade, so my parents bought, like, game carts, and we're like, go have fun. So my brother and I were, like, meandering about. They had, like, 10 machines. This wasn't, like, an in-depth arcade, but they had one of those claw machines, and my brother got, like, honed in on the idea of winning something from this. And that was not going to happen. It's never going to happen. People win those, like, what? Once a week? But, so he was, like, stuck on this idea. And he spent, like, the rest of the money on his game card on it. And then he was trying to get me to give him the rest of the money on my game card for him to do it. And I think I did end up giving him some. It's been a minute, so I don't entirely remember. And then the entire ride home, he just kept on going, but I could go back and win it. I could go back and win. And a claw machine is not gambling, technically. It's like children gambling. That's what children do, to gamble instead. But I think that is just representative of the way that these online apps are allowing people to have more access. Because, like, the sole benefit of that claw machine being at this Jersey Mike's is it's like a mile away from my house. And at the time, my brother couldn't drive, and now he has forgotten it. But for these online apps, it's in close proximity. It would be like if this claw machine was right next door instead of that mile away. And then it becomes far easier for people to get into gambling and then be stuck in the world of gambling, which isn't good for most people, and it's really not good for anyone, but it's worse for some people. Anyways, so Kalshi has been legalized by the designated contract market and is overseen by Commodity Futures Trading Commission rather than state commissions. And so it's kind of their way of trying to, like, slide around state regulations for these things, because in Drew Gooden's video, he mentions this, but there's only, like, he mentions there's only, like, one app that's legal in his state to be using for this sports betting. So they're trying to circumvent around that by saying that they're federally managed rather than managed at a state level, which, if that's the method one is going about to ensure that their gambling is legal, it's probably a shitty situation. It's probably not good. Anyways, it supposedly has been banned in Minnesota, but I don't know how Minnesota has managed to pull that off, but props to them if they have. Minnesota is the first state to pass a comprehensive state law banning prediction market sites, so it's possible that the way that Minnesota got around that Kalshi trying to claim that they are federally managed was by calling them out directly, like, indirectly, you know? That way that, like, teachers do when, like, one specific kid is fucking around and they're like, everybody should put their computers away and look at me. And, like, they did not directly say the name of the kid that was messing around, but you know, and they know who the teacher was talking about. And that's kind of the situation. Minnesota was like, all prediction sites, Kalshi, we're talking to you. You should really listen to that. So, like, props to Minnesota. I'm assuming that's how that works. I do not know for sure, and therefore, you can't take my word for it. Other states, like Arizona specifically was the one that I saw mentioned, have also filed criminal suits and just general lawsuits against Kalshi, accusing it of being a gambling service. Which it is. In case you haven't caught on, it is 100% a gambling service. Anyway, 13 federal lawsuits have been filed against Kalshi in total, which isn't good. Again, if your site is not gambling, it should not have 13 lawsuits. 8 of these lawsuits are from different states, from different state law gambling commissions and Indian tribes, accusing them of being an unlicensed gambling platform, which, in case you didn't know, due to the fact that Native American grounds are technically sovereign, they're allowed to have gambling stuff on their land. I don't know if that's how Las Vegas works. I don't know if that's a Las Vegas situation, but I do know that is the situation in Idaho. I've driven by them before. They're not in Boise. They're a bit out. I was driving to... Where was I driving to? Lewiston? I don't remember. I was driving up, and they're kind of like northern Idaho. But because it is a Native American ground, they're allowed to have gambling. And it's kind of the way that, to my understanding, again, I don't know this for sure, but it's one of the ways that these tribes bring in a decent chunk of money towards the management that they have to do for their land, is by these gambling services that can be offered in most other places. And so they're basically calling Kalshi out because they're not allowed to do that. Kalshi is not a sovereign group. What else do we have on here? Kalshi's argument being made by its lawyers is that sports betting happening on their site is not a game. That doesn't make sense. I don't know if I translated this right. And by translated, I mean wrote it down from a website. Yeah, basically the point that Kalshi's lawyers have been making is the point that I said they were making, which is that they are not regulated by state laws, they are regulated by federal ones. To which I don't think that's going to work out for them. 13 suits does mean that if Kalshi manages to thwart them all by going, no, we're regulated at a federal level, so you can't mess with us. What that does mean is those 13 cases, which 8 of which are by state and Native American groups, and 5 of which are individuals accusing them of worsening gambling addictions, those 13 lawsuits will work together and it will be escalated to like the Supreme Court and Congress, and it will be regulated federally, actually, and properly. If they don't like accept the state regulations, it will go up higher, and up higher will, I'd hope that they'd say it regulated by state, but who knows, and it could work out poorly for Kalshi. And I want them to leave me alone, so ideally, for me, it would, they'd be forced to leave me alone, but I don't think that's gonna happen. So we just have to hope for, like, the next best, I guess. Also, just for context, as to why they've worsened, because I found this out and I thought that was interesting. They've worsened more recently because under Biden's administration, there were harsher restrictions around it, and then under Trump's advising, those have loosened up, and so they've been able to be louder about the fact that they exist and market to more people and exist more heavily because Donald Trump Jr. is now an advisor to the app. Which is what it is. Mostly I just want the app to leave me alone, and ideally stop being sued. Stop avoiding calling yourself a gambling app. You're a gambling app. Literally, I thought it was a gambling app until I looked it up because I was like, I'm gonna talk about this just because it won't leave me alone, and I wonder what they have going on. I wonder if they have anything going on that's like interesting enough to deserve the fact that I'm gonna talk about it for nearly 20 minutes. And they did, obviously, because I've talked about it for nearly 20 minutes, and then most of it's been like, here's all the lawsuits they have against them. What was the point I started with? Yeah. I just want them to leave me alone, primarily, which I don't think they will. Oh, I remember. So, calling yourself not a gambling app when I 100% believed from all of its ads that it was a gambling app. Like, I didn't realize that a prediction market was something different until I, like, started doing my research. Anyways, you are no longer contractually obligated to be here, but you can say goodnight to my dog. She's sleepy. Just like she doesn't sleep all day, of course. Anyway, ideally tomorrow I think I will talk about the pressures that fandoms put on actors and how much it like fucks up their relationships, because I think that's a really interesting topic. And also, people won't leave people alone. It's insane. It's happened too many times. I can think of several examples off the top of my head, but I'm not gonna spoil it. If you've made it this far, then you'll probably be back. Good luck.